Okay, so uh, yesterday sessions we have seen uh, how to install an Xcode and what's the basic structure of a iOS application. This we have seen yesterday. So if you have any questions, most probably you can send a message. I will reply to that.
Suresh, your screen is not clear.
Is it clear now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Let's start with Objective-C, object-oriented concepts.
Okay.
So, as I said earlier, these object-oriented procedures are common for all object-oriented languages, similar to other languages. So today we're going to have a session with classes and objects, and we'll see how to create a classes and how to create an objects in an Objective-C language. So coming to the classes, so here in Objective-C, if you look at uh, C language, I explained yesterday what is the basic structure difference from a C to Objective-C. The C is just structure oriented, whereas Objective-C is object oriented. In C language, we have uh, .c files and .h files. We can create header files and C files we can create. So where it's the combination, let's forget about .h files. If you look at .c files, the .c file contains declarations and implementations. .c files and implementations. So we have, and so these .c files, whereas in Objective-C we have two files, so separated. One is for declarations, one is for implementation. So let's come to this classes in Objective-C. So here the class is a blueprint, as you know that. If you would like to create or structure any of your idea, so first we supposed to make one plan. So the plan is comes under is like a blueprint. So classes, for example, I would like to make one application is related to any vehicles design. Say some design for a vehicle. Let's talk about it's a two-wheeler. First we should have a structure for it. So that structure comes, what are the major elements we have to make. Elements are needed, and what are the actions are needed. So by keeping these two things in our mind, we're going to structure the idea. So the structurization of the idea is comes with designing the classes. Here the class, if it is two-wheeler, first we'll think about the what's the basic structure is required. So what can be the color? What will be the width or height? What will be the weight? What will be the shape? So by keeping these things in our mind, we will design the properties. What kind of properties are required for the idea? We'll plan the ideas. Once properties are ready, then we'll think about the behavior. The behavior is nothing but the actions. So if it is a vehicle, we'll think about speed. So what will be the speed? And we'll think about the control of a vehicle. So here speed and control, these comes under actions. So actions always represents in any programming language with methods. The action is a combination of the procedure. So the procedure is nothing but a statement. So if you collect a collection of statements, if you keep it as like a one action, that action will call as like a method. So that will be the behavior. So by keeping these things in our mind, we will define one class. So this is looks like one blueprint. So what will be the structure? Shape, height. We'll define this. And we'll add the behaviors like a speed and control. This is the declaration of your model. So we'll define this model. So here in C language, we do when we define a color. So why I said it's structure means here we have not specified any color specific, like what kind of color is this, like whether is it white or red, or we didn't specify any value for it. Just we define the structure. So what is required? The structure is talks about the classes. So in technical terms, we can say the class is a combination of a data member and member functions. If you see here, we have a data members. This we call is like a data members. These are data members. So these behaviors will call as like a member functions. The terms will vary based on your various languages. The various languages will have a different words, but here in objectiveC will call it like a data members and member functions. In objectiveC, is a class is a combination of two files. So one is .h and one is .m. As I said, the C language is one file it contains both. It's like it's have a declaration and implementation in same file, whereas an objectiveC declaration are separate and implementation is separate. Here this is only declaration. We call this declaration and we'll define with one file. So that is with bike.h. So this is our file. So then we need implementation. So the implementation will create one file with bike.m. The extension is .m for an implementation. So what we do at implementation, the implementation will define the values. If it is speed, so we'll make sure that what are the functionalities comes under the speed, we will make a plan of it. And if it is the control, we'll make some conditions to apply for it. It's nothing but it's a combination of, here you will have a block of statements which refers your action. So this is your implementation file, this is your declaration file. The combination of these two files collectively called as class. So what is the syntax for a class in Objective-C? So for syntax, we're supposed to add the keywords which can identify the language by the compilers. So here we have different keywords, that is interface. At the rate interface is the keyword which refers the class. This is like your font must be small. Like the interface, at the rate interface is a keyword which refers the class. So these anchor tags can be any name, which should be an identifier. It should satisfy the identifier rules. So, and it follows the superclass name. So this is like a basic declaration of a class. We can define the data members in a braces. Later we define the member functions, and we'll end with at the rate, and this is the keyword. Here we can see the two keywords. One is at the rate interface, one is at the rate end. These two keywords will use to declare a class. So if we declare, for example, I created a file bike.h. So my declaration comes at the rate interface class name followed by the superclass name. So I define two properties. One is number of gears and fuel capacity with the different data types. So it varies based on the values. We have to define the data types, what type of data is required, or what type of data you are saving in your system. So we have to define the data types. So later we have to declare the methods. The method declarations and syntax are a bit different from the C language and other languages. Here we'll define the method names and we'll end with at the rate end. This is your declaration file. It looks like. If it is implementation, we have to define at the rate implementation is the keyword we have to use, and it should end with at the rate end. So at the rate implementation, so it's a class name, and whatever the method you defined in .h, we will implement that method and will initialize the values which are declared and defined in .h. So the values initialization we cannot do in a .h file. The .h file is never support to initializations. So we'll use the .m file to make initializations and other functions. So we'll end the .m file with at the rate n. So it makes sure that the implementation is ended. So this is the way like we're going to define the classes. Let's see. Let's create a project. So this is my Xcode. I would like to create a file. So I start with on application with a single application. Class demo. select the language and select the device. It's universal which supports for both the devices, and we'll declare. So here they are the set and auto generated classes based on your template selection, we can see here. So let me add one class. Let's forget about these classes as of now. So these are auto generated. Let's create one class. So go to file, and we have a new option. Select the new option and go to file. Now you can see there are different files. We are developing for iOS, so let's go with iOS. Select any Cocoa Touch class, or you can create your .h file or .m file, both are separated, or else if you would like to go with a single file, just you can select it. Here I'm creating a demo or the bike. So this is my super class NS object. I will tell you that what it is. And the language, I selected objective-C. My syntactical notation comes with objective-C. Here you have to select the target, to which target you are adding these two files. So I created the project is class name, so I'm selecting that class name. So here you can see when I create a one class, it generated two files. One is .h file and one is .m file. So the .h file, as I said, the syntax here we can see that syntax. This is your framework which we imported, which supports this classes for the compilation level. So at the rate interface is my keyword. This is the user defined name, class name. This is my super class. Here in objective-C, all classes starts, all classes is the subclasses for NS object. NS object is the super class for all classes in objective-C. So here objective-C uses the foundation framework. The foundation framework will have a classes, all the classes are related to objective-C. Because objective-C is developed by the next step. So by the reason they add ns as a prefix for all the classes. So the object is my class name, my prefix is ns because ns means next step. It's an organization, is founded by the Steve Jobs. So they developed this language, so they added all the API classes starts with ns object. So ns, so this is my class is ns object. So let me create some properties. As I said, int, you can define number of let's make it let's give some property. So these are my two properties which I defined. So if I would like to implement these two properties, I need some methods. So here the method declarations are different. Whereas in C language, you can define a method. So the method will follow a return type. You will have a return type. Method name will start with braces and arguments. And we'll make block of statements. So this is whereas you do in C language. An example, we go with the void is my return type. Some These are optional. If I would like to do something, I can do it here. Is equal to 10 and b is equal to 20. Then we can add in sum equal to a plus b. This is where you can define in C language. When it comes for object to C, the return type is same, the method name is same. Like this follows the same. Here there are two object oriented, as per the object oriented procedures, we have two sections. One is like class and one is like object. So we have to add a sign here. Sign and return type, the method name, which follows the arguments. The shape method comes like this, either plus or minus. This is my sign. The return type is void. This is sum. So there is no arguments. So I don't need to specify any bracket. Define. This is same. You can create variables. This is same. I like yours. This is like your declaration, syntactical changes from C language to object to C. So let me create. I will tell you that what is minus and what is the plus in methods explanation. This is void sum, or there is some speed like that. Or so here I can get the variables which I declared in .h, because I'm importing the .h file. So if you link your .h file so that we can access in .m file. So let's say here my two variables are you can define some weight. Fuel capacity can be some 15, 14.5, something like that. Here just we can do this. I would like to know some description. You can write a printf. This is bike class. So what are the methods you have to declare in .h file so that you can implement in .m. So in order to remove your warnings and all. So this will be your class declaration. So this is a base structure of a class. So now I would like to create some memory for the class, and I would like to execute these actions. So in order to execute the actions, we need one the real-time entities. It's nothing but which exists at real. So this is our main and starting file where we can get a control. So I would like to access my file here. So I need to import this bike.h. Now I want to run the actions of a class. So this will be clear here, how to declare a class and how to declare a data members and methods is like a basic structure. What will be the structure of a class? And as I said, methods. So methods in C language, we have seen functions. The functions are similar to methods in Objective-C. So method can have a collection of statements. It's nothing but a collection of statements which are developed to achieve a specific task. And methods in Objective-C, there are two types of methods. One is object methods or instance methods with scope related to objects. There are certain methods are related to class methods which are global for the class. Methods will have a return type and name of the method and parameters as similar to your C language. The difference for a C2 Objective-C here, there is a sign. Is it whether is it belongs to object or whether it belongs to class. So as I said, there is a syntactical notation for methods: sign followed with return type, method name, and arguments if any. If at all, if I would like to define any method with an argument, I will tell you that what is plus and minus. Here if it comes here, there are two scopes. When we deal with classes and we have objects. So we can define a method in C language. There are two scopes. One is static methods, one is instant like a normal methods. Here in Objective-C, the class methods and objects methods. If a method is followed with plus sign, so those methods are scope level is class. If a method is follows with minus sign, it belongs to object scope. If you take any of the bike, so the bike manufacturers are same, that is class level. The objects are different, is based on the models. So we can define a different performance for different bikes, but all the manufacturing is derived from one organization. So all the organization information is belongs to class. So we'll keep some certain methods at class level which are common for the class. We'll keep the some methods are different and unique behavior with respect to the objects, that will keep is like a object methods. So object methods follow the minus symbol and class methods follows the plus symbol. Here, like a C, we have a what is the use of a return type. So you might aware of C language. There is the same behavior. There is no change. And arguments are like a same, passing the values from one method to another method. So that we use like to pass the arguments to the method, we'll use the parameters or arguments. Here the class methods will be executed with class name. Let's define a class method. I would like to define this description of a bike as a class method. So now I would like to, because my class has been defined, I would like to execute this class. So here the way of invoking a class methods are different. Here we can get a help description of bike. So if it is a C language, if you define any method, so we can call the method something like this. So because this is a structure oriented, so there is no object and class relation, so we can call like this. But whereas in Objective-C, if you would like to execute any method, it should be enclosed with close brackets. If it is a class level, then you have to call the method with class name. If it is object level, we pass the object here. So this is the class level method. So I use class name and method name. This is the way of invoking a method in Objective-C. Now if you execute this, It's attaching. Now it's running. So as I call from main bike description, so it finds and it's linked to the specific method. So we can see that printf, this is your output area where it comes with it's a debugger is LLDB. It's one of the debugger is defined for to execute to debug the source from the export. So this is printf statement which prints the data on a file. So this is your output file where you can display some string. So this is the way of execution for class methods. So these are global for entire the class. So whatever the information or statements is executed in the class method, those are common. Now if I would like to call certain properties are specific to object level, so I can keep it and I can create some objects. I have to create an object. So the object creation in objectiveC, for example, the syntax, if you see, this is my class name, an object name, followed by asterisk. You need to allocate the memory for this class name, and there is a method name. You have to invoke a method which can allocate memory for the class and which allocates the memory, and that memory will be pointed with one object, the reference from the object. Here in our case, the bike is a class. Let's create bike1 as my object. So I would like to create a memory for it. So in order to allocate a memory, we have a certain methods which derived and inherited from NS object, because as I said, NS object is a superclass for all the classes. Here I have a method new which allocates and initializes the memory for this specific class. So this is the way of creating an object. This new method will create an object for the class. So those memory is pointed from the variable bike1. So this we will call it like a object. Let's create from the main data. Create an object. I would like to call one object method from here. Let's create. This is the way of invoking a class methods. This is the way of invoking object methods. As I said, object methods are unique for different objects. If I would like to pass two values here, float weight and fuel something, float fuel. This is the way of defining arguments in for a methods in objective-C. Whatever it comes, just add it. Whatever we pass the values, these are different for different objects. Now I would like to call the same method speed with weight and fuel 14.2. This I can display here. Printf follow the same percent %f whatever it comes. Yes, you can. Now you can run the application. It's building in the classroom. It's compiling. This is my breakpoint through which I can see the flow of execution. This is my class. It's invoked class. After that, object. This is the way of creating an object and passing an arguments to the method. Here the method, if it is C language, the declaration is different. As I said, void speed method. Float, wait, here it's come something like this. Whereas an object to C, thus there is syntactical chain. If you would like to pass an argument, and you have to extend the method name. This can be just keep the data types in braces and pass the argument. You have to add the reference type, whether is it class level or object level. So this way we can change that. This is the basic difference, syntactical difference, notation for object C2C. As I said, objects we can say in technical terms, it's an instance of a class. An object is a real-time entity which we can represent a class. If the class is a structure, we can derive different objects. Each object we can represent at real time. If, for example, if the bike is a class, we can say like we can define different models of bikes. We can represent in real time. And object creation, as I said, NS object is superclass for all the classes. And object creation can be done with new method or else alloc. Alloc is one of the method which uses your malloc and calloc in the backend to allocate a memory for any object in object-C. Create a memory for objects and classes. This is the way of declaration with a new method, or else this is the way of declaration for init method. If you would like to create an object with alloc method in NS from the NS object, we can add alloc followed with init. So here init will initialize the initial implementation for the object, initial values. Here this is the way of creating an object. I created. So I'm coming to this methods. So if it is the methods, this is the way of method declaration. This is the way of invoking a method. If it is object level, we use the object followed by the method name. If you would like to pass any arguments, this is the way of declaring an arguments. If it is single argument and multi arguments. If you would like to pass some value, then when we invoke a method, we'll pass the value for the specific variable. This is the way of creation and execution. So in C language, as I said, return type, method name, and this is the way of execution. And this is the way of declaration in C. This is the basic difference C to objective-C for defining the methods. If you see that, so this is a keyword at the rate implementation. As I said, these are the keywords. So you have to use the keyword as it is, which objective-C and Apple suggested. There is nothing special with those annotations. So let's have a glance with the scope of variables. In every programming language, the scope of variable declaration takes major place. Here the scope of variables we can see in different ways. One is local variables and one is global variables. One are instance variables, one are class variables. There is a basic difference in object-oriented languages. We cannot call any instance method from class method. To talk about methods, cannot be invoked from class methods. So because there is no guarantee we can create an object, we're going to create an object for class. It's an optional. Either we can create an object or we cannot create an object. So we cannot guarantee that there are certain object methods is already allocated memory, so that we cannot call any instance methods from the class method. We can call a class method from instance method. This is only the basic difference. Can be invoked from instance methods. So the only the reason is it depends on the scope. The scope of the variables. Here you can see the scope is, you can declare a global scope or a local scope. If you see it here, these two variables are available across the implementation. You can use those two variables in any of the methods. You can use these variables. So these two variables you can access global to the file level. So this is global. These two variables are global for the class. Inside of a class we can use that. Here interface is the way of declaration for a class. As I said earlier, these are the keywords. We should follow the keywords when we declare a class, so that the compiler can understand this is a class. The bike is a class. If you follow a class, a name by interface, so that it can identify. The similar way at the rate implementation, so object-C is follows the plain English words. The abbreviation is implementation is same. So implementation for a class, and end represents the end of the implementation. Here end represents the end of the declaration of a class. It's mandatory to end a class implementation, and it's mandatory to end a class declaration. When we talk about scope of variables, if you want a local scope for a variables or a methods, we'll define here the A and B are the variables with scope is up to the control. So we cannot access these variables in any of the other methods. So these are local variables. So these are the class level variables. So these variables can be used any of the method which implemented in the class. So these are the two kinds of scopes. We can say one is local and one is global for the class level. So there are the certain variables we can define for the interaction from one class to another class. So this is only the one class. Now we'll tell you the another scenario. I can create multiple objects for one class. So when you create any of the object, you should follow the asterisk. It's like a pointer reference. It points the memory. I said we can create a memory allocation either with new or either with alloc init. This alloc init is equal to new. The alloc will allocate the memory. Init will initialize the initial values for the properties which defined in that class. Here I can say it's a bike 1. So I would like to access the data members from outside of the class with objects. So if I want to access these data members, here if you can see, these two data members can be accessed in bike.m file. So because we imported this bike.h, the scope level is global for this class. So I'm using this class from another class. It's like say main.m is another file implementation. I want to use this bike class, so I create an object for it. I would like to read the values. I would like to get the properties from here. So I want to do that. So there is a wait here. It's not giving the scope to access those data members. It's because those are global only inside of the class. We cannot access outside of the class. If you would like to know the access, then we have a different scenarios that comes with when we talk about inheritance. So we can have a glance with how to access a class data members from one class to another class. So because of that reason, we can define a getter and setter methods. We can access the methods from outside of the class. So we have to define getter and setters. So yes, both are same. New and alloc init both are same. The new is equal to alloc init. It's a combination. So I want to make sure I would like to access the data members. You might have seen the scope we can access inside. I want to access these data members outside of the class. For that, there is a representation comes properties. Either let's go with class. Now we can look into, we'll talk about how to make one variables accessible from outside of the other classes or outside of its class. So we have another concept is called access specifiers. We can specify an access for the data members which are defined in a class. So the concept is called as access specifiers. Here you can define an access specifiers. So before talk about access specifiers, there are certain access specifiers we have in objectiveC. Public, private, package. So all the keywords followed the sign. So these are the three keywords we'll use for to provide an access for the data members of a class. So by default, all the data members which are defined are protected. So by default, if there is we have not defined any data members, so these are by default, these data members are related to protected. So these are the different access specifiers which specify the access for the data members. So by implementing this, we can access these data members outside of the class. Let's have a glance. I would like to go with the public. So this is now these data members are public. I want to make one private. You can define a private data members float, right? So all the statements is terminated with semicolon. That is the similar to C. Private. Now we define three data members. Two are public scope, one is private scope. So if you not define any data member in any scope, those are protected. This is protected. What we can say. So I define another. There are three. Now this is protected. These two are public. This is private. Now I would like to access. So in order to access the data members of a class with the object, it follows two keywords. Now if the data members are public, we can access with arrow, and now we can see there are the five data members are existed in that class. One is color and fuel capacity, height, EJ and weight. If you see any non-declared properties in your help, so those properties are inherited from the super class, which inherits the class. So I have fuel capacity is public scope, so I can keep some here. So I have a weight is accessible, so I can keep something. So this is the way we can access a data members from class outside of it. We have to declare a object. So object followed by arrow, by giving a data member name, we can access. So by default, all data members in objectiveC are read and write. It have two access, read and write. You can write the values to that data members, you can read the values from that variable. So this is the way. So now I was not able to access this data member private. I'm not able to access the data member is which is in protected. So this is the inheritance. We see we defined one class and we executed the class methods with class name. We executed instance methods by creating an instance for the class or object methods. Now I would like to access the data members which are in protected scope. So private scope is different. I will tell you more in detail for the scope of the variables after inheritance session. So now I have one class. I would like to inherit some certain things. So here inheritance is another feature of an object oriented procedures. So we can inherit some data members from one data members of a class to another data member of classes. We can talk about more inheritance in later classes. So the access specifiers, as I said, just you can remember, private data members can't be accessed from other classes. It's available only within the class. You can use inside of a class. It's nothing but the class implementation file. The protected data members are can be accessed by its subclasses. That is also be class level. We cannot access outside of the classes. The package data members are related to the package level. It's nothing but one framework level. So the classes which are defined in that framework, all the classes can access the package members. So this comes under inheritance. The public, the data members which are defined in public that can be accessed by the object followed with arrow symbol. So I can tell you the more in detail while we see the inheritance sessions. Here the inheritance comes in two areas. The major advantage of inheritance we might aware of with the other object oriented procedures. This is same. Class A and I have class B. This is my class A in general. Let's go with parent class. This is my child class. If the child class is derived from the you can say that the orientation will be different. The child is derived the class parent. So if the parent class having some data members and methods that can be inherited to child, its inheritance comes for reusability. So we can reuse from parent features to child features. All the parent features can be reused by the child based on the access inheritance. The major advantage with the ability to reuse a code or ability to reuse an actions or properties from one class to another class with a relation that comes for inheritance. So all the data members in a class can be inherited with by the subclasses. So the inheritance syntax, this is my interface, it's nothing but class. This is my class child or parent. I define the parent, it should inherit my superclass object. This symbol will be used for inheritance. It represents the inheritance. Here class parent inherits the features and properties from NS object. I define another class child. So the class, the parent, whatever it have data members and member functions or methods that can be inherited by the child. So the level here we can see this is one level. This is one class, this is one class. there are the two classes are in inheritance, we can call these two classes are in single inheritance. This is like there are different names, we can call it single inheritance. And we have this is multi-level inheritance. This is the single level, one level. So one, there the two classes are in reusability. It's called single inheritance. Here the parent, here also there are the two classes, but the parent class is already inherited from the another class NS object. So the child class can have two features. One is from it can access the data members which defined for NS object, and also the data members of a parent. It can access parent and NS object are nothing but all the super classes of the parent that reused in child. This is single level. Here we can see there are multi-level. Child to parent is one level, parent to NS object is one level. This is level 1. This is one single inheritance. This is another single inheritance. So more than one level, so we call it as like multi-level. So while we access the data members from one class to another class, we can give certain restrictions or will provide the access specifications. So that we will talk about multiple inheritance in later. So here, as of now, we can see the single inheritance and multi-level inheritance. So I define some data. By default, all the data members are protected. So the protected data can be accessed within a relation. So it's related to a relation. If there is some data which defined in a one class, if there is another class which is related to the previous class, so the another class can access the protected data members. So whatever the data is defined in this class, parent or properties, these properties are directly inherited by the child. The properties will come to the child directly. There are now we can look about the access specifiers. These two classes, parent and child, are related to one relation. Multiple inheritance is not supported from the objective-C. It's same as object-oriented features are same. So because this is object-oriented features are common for the object-oriented languages. So there is no violation from the objective-C. It doesn't support object multiple inheritance. Because same as how the Java is used another concept, here also we will have another concept to support it. But directly there is no support for multiple inheritance. So if the data members are protected, that can be accessed within the relation. If the data members are public, that can be accessed. This is one relation, and I have another class. Let's say it's object. This is one level and this is another level. If the data is protected in NS object, those protected data directly accessible to parent and child. If there is some data, is there any data which is defined as a protected in NS object or parent that can be directly accessed to child? If there is some data is defined protected, all the subclasses. If there is the data, so this is one relation. We can say all the data is there in one relation. You can say these three classes are in one relation. So then it is fine. I can have another relation. This is from different. This is one relation. This is one relation. If I would like to access the data which is defined and protected from this relation to from group 1 to group 2, now it doesn't support. The protected data cannot be accessed from group 1 to group 2. So we can see the charting groups in WhatsApp. The one group information cannot be shared to another group. Those are protected. If there is a data is public, so all the public data can be accessed from one. So if these two are not in relation, these two are not in inheritance, so still if the data is public, that can be accessed. So any public data is defined in any class that can be accessed from the other classes. Now we have another is private. If there is some data which is private, if the data is private, that is private for only the class, so it cannot be accessed from any of the subclasses if those are defined in the same relation. We have another keyword is like package. If these two relations, these two are not related, but if these two, all the classes are defined within one package, like we can say this is simple. So now these two are within one package. So if the data members are packaged in any one of the class, those can be accessed within this package. If you create another package, those data members cannot be accessed. The public data is available within package or other classes of other packages, those can be accessed. So that is the basic access specification with data members. Sorry, with access specifiers. The access specifiers are defined for the data members in Objective-C. So this is about access specifiers. Here we can see there are the two keywords. One is self, one is super. The self keyword is a representation for the object. If you would like to call one method from another method within the same class, I want to call the control. So these are in same. So I can represent my current object with self keyword. So whatever the object is invoke the method speed, that object can directly access the control method. So I want to make function call from one function to another function within the class. I use self. I would like to access some data from super class. The bike super class is NS object. So I want to access a super class. So I can call one method from the super class with super keyword. So this is the way. If you would like to call any method from super classes, we use the super. If you would like to call one method within the same class, we use self. The ID will initialize this super init. It returns one ID itself. Here we can see the another keyword that is called ID. ID is the keyword which is identical. So that can refer any type of data or any type of object. If there is a data member which is having a data type ID, ID value. So this value can be float, this value can be int, or this value can be any data type, or the value can be any object. So this is can refer any data member's memory location with ID. So this is about the properties and the inheritance and the access specifiers. I can tell you one example for an inheritance by creating multiple methods, multiple classes, the way of access for protected and private and public. This is all about. Any doubts from anyone?
Hello.
Yes.
Uh, can you please give us some example of ID where we can use that?
So ID, I will tell you that because if we are not sure what kind of data is binding to the some specific data member, so we'll use that. It's like a dynamic data type in Objective-C.
Okay.
If you know
Thank
there is a data float, so we can define a float. If there is some data we are receiving from server, we are not sure what kind of data it is, so we'll define a data member as a ID. So it depends on the structure how you are creating. So if the data is not sure, then we can define an ID. So is there any other doubts? So up to this session so far. Okay. So then we'll meet in this tomorrow. I will update you the timings. Most probably we can have it 2 or 3 hours session tomorrow. Can we have a session tomorrow at afternoon? Is it fine?
In afternoon at what time around?
So it depends. So if all are available for 3, so that it's 5 to 8. The evening 5 to 8.
Uh, okay for me.
5 p.m. is 2. Sorry, 8 p.m. is 2.